Frustrated with freelancing platforms that don't recognize your worth? Tired of the whole client vetting process, talent mismatching, and insanely high platform fees? Alchemunity is the solution for you. Unlike all those other platforms, Alchemunity has a built-in process that prevents downbidding. It also does not charge freelancers any transaction fees. The talent matching process is also made easier with its unique gamified scoring system. And vetting is much more effective because Alchemunity offers a two-way review every time a project is finished. So if you see freelancing as a lifestyle and want to build a successful freelancing career, then choose Alchemunity. Register now at alchemunity.com.
Welcome back to
Freelance Bidders.
That was sassy, that one.
I know. Sassatron. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here. So one thing that I feel like we as freelancers have a problem with, or we kind of struggle with, is maximizing our time, right? Because every day is kind of different in the freelance world. Like one day you're writing, one day you're researching, one day you're invoicing, and one day you're doing client calls so much. There's a lot to be done. And we all only have, I would say 24 hours in the day, but who's working 24 hours in a day? We really only have 8 to 10 hours really and only 4 hours of focus time. So how the heck are you supposed to maximize your time as a freelancer? Also, so you can make more clams per hour or more clams a year, and clams meaning money, So this episode we're kind of going to go through some of the tactics that we've used and some of the recommendations we have for maximizing your time and making more money, honey. Clams.
Should I start?
Are these what clams look like? No.
Little pearls.
Little pearls. Oh, pearls. That's why clams mean money.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, yeah. Tell us how you make some more pearls.
So I think, so time really is a commodity in freelancing. And the more that you can do to speed up your systems and your processes, the more money that you are going to make. And so there's a few ways that I do this. First and foremost.
First and
foremost, I put a lot of time and energy into establishing systems and processes that are replicable, and also just really organizing my business.
Okay.
And so, for example, I have a Trello board to manage all of my different clients. I have a content brief to make sure that I'm going into every project. I have the same process. I say, this is what I do. This is what I need from you. And it works the same for every client. Sometimes there's slight nuances with how a client works, which is fine. And I can adhere to their system as well.
Right.
But just as long as there is a system in place and a way to really be this is the information that I need from you. Send it to me. This is what I'm going to do with it. And so just having those systems and those processes in place really, really help me stay on the ball and to not only accomplish work faster, but to make sure that I am hitting the mark every time, so that I don't have to rewrite an entire blog post or redo my research or, redo my onboarding process. Having an onboarding process is also something that's important. I have an onboarding process for my subcontractors, and I also have an onboarding process for clients, really, because they don't have to do too much to onboard to work with me, but I feel like there's some things that I need to do in order to make sure that I know their business inside and out. And that process can look different for everybody, but for me, getting my editors and my research assistants and my virtual assistants on board with exactly how things work makes it so I'm not answering 100 emails or phone calls or, just things that can be answered with a simple onboarding process. Yeah, so that's a big one for me, is just really making sure that you're optimizing your time by finding systems and processes that are replicable, that make it possible to really save time.
Yeah, no, I love that bit about getting as much information as you can from a client for a brief, because it saves you time in edits also.
Oh, for sure.
You're not answering as much contextual edits, or mostly contextual, right? Because if you're missing the context of something, that takes a lot more time, because you have to if you missed a point that they clearly said, or they didn't say, that's actually more what it is. If they didn't say they needed
They
this
didn't
point,
say, but it's in their head.
they thought about it.
Yeah.
And then it
They
comes
want
back to you, and it's like, it depends on how you scope that out, right? Like, because for example, like I know I'm the type of person that they'd be like, hey, like we missed this point. And I'm not going to go fight and be like, well, you didn't say this in the brief. You know, I'm just going to bite the bullet, take the extra 15, 20 minutes and just get it done. But if you get all the information ahead of time, you're less likely that that's going to happen, you know, and then you can save that extra 15, 20 minutes. So time saver. But I'm curious. So a lot of what you had mentioned so far is working with a team. What if you're a freelancer without a team, or you don't want a team, right? Like, what if you're just like the solo freelancer?
I think that, I mean, and those processes that I have, they apply to myself as well. Like, regardless of if I'm working with a research assistant, or somebody else, I'm still going to have an onboarding email for my clients. And I have like an introduction email. I think I've shared this on Twitter a couple of times, but it says, this is who I am. This is what my prices are. This is what my processes are. If this sounds good to you, let's schedule a call.
Yeah.
And so laying all that information out, first of all, it saves me a lot of time on the back and forth. It helps me determine whether or not the client is a fit and whether I'm a fit for them. And I would back up too, and I would also say, know what works for you and what doesn't. And so a lot of times, like I'll get a client and they're like, I want to pay you 5 cents a word or something. And I'm like, that's not acceptable.
Right.
You know, that's probably a client I would not refer to anyone. I just, thank them for their time, but it's a way to save me 30 minutes on a call. And then once we've decided that it's a good fit, I can send them an onboarding email that says, these are the assets that I need from you to bring me up to speed so that I can hit the ground running, essentially.
Yeah.
And having that all in one email makes it possible for them to know, okay, this is exactly what I need. And then I can really just like start doing my research, doing my onboarding. So, and then same thing when a content brief is like, I'm still going to use that whether or not I'm sending a content brief to a subcontractor or if I'm collecting it for myself or something like that. It just gives me all the information that I need to make sure that I'm not doing 1,000 rewrites. You can approach a topic so many different ways. If you only get a topic from a client, you're not getting enough information from them to determine, to really like hit their goals. And so a content brief just saves me time by like not having to like rewrite things or, stuff like that. And I also, part of my process is I have an editor. So I actually employ a full-time editor who reviews all of my pieces. And there's a couple of reasons I do that. One, I am a full believer like in your brain adjusts to what you're writing and you absolutely do not see it. Like there will be a there, and there that you missed. And you would see it in somebody else's writing, but you won't see it.
Not your client seeing you using there, and there wrong.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so I have an editor, and that helps me too. Like it saves me way more time to pay my editor to catch those things for me than it does for me to like waste my brain power on things that I'm going to miss because I've been writing for 5 hours.
Yeah, and I love that too because it also improves client retention, right? Because whether they know you're using an editor or not, like you could say whatever you want. It also like they get a fully polished article.
Yeah.
And who doesn't want that?
Right.
And I think another way like on time, and we're talking about like systems and processes. How about when it comes down to writing? That's an interesting one, no? Because like as writers, we spend a lot of our time researching. I know like we have the whole like how long it takes to do this and that the other thing, but throwing out all of those things that you read for you personally, you're going to probably spend a lot of time researching, sourcing quotes, like doing the outline, and then the actual time writing, right? Like, and there's ways to speed that up, so you can
make more clams.
Make more clams, exactly. And I know, like for example, for research for you, you use Waldo. Which is a research tool, and it kind of like, give us like a little, what's your 30-second pitch for Waldo? And then we can
Oh my gosh, Waldo is so cool, and it's a free tool right now. Essentially, it's a Chrome extension that helps you like get to information faster. So like they have x-rays, so you can press a button. Like if you're looking for a data point or something, you can Google whatever it is that you want, like, ooh, influencer marketing trends 2022 or something. And then you'll click like D or something is for data. And then it'll pull up everything that's like a data point. And so you can just like quickly look through instead of having to like search through Google Ads and Google Reports and things like that. It'll
time saver.
Yeah, it's a huge time saver. And then they also have, I mean, they have like lots of different ways that you can use it. Although sponsor us, but they also have like lenses where you can be like, these are the publications that I'm going to want stats from. And so you can be like, oh, NFR, someone, Statista, someone, you know, different like publications that you want, like that like whatever one of your clients wants. And then it'll only search those publications.
Love that.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yes. So I'm
think, still learning Waldo.
Yes. So using those kind of tools is a great way to just speed up the research. And for me, research is one of the things that takes like the most time. It's good because it gives me insight and like helps me see what new reports are coming out, but being able to sift through some of like the content that isn't relevant to what I'm writing about really, really helps. So yes, I use Waldo for that. I also recently have hired a VA, and I think a great way to scale your business and also to save time is to bring on help. If, you know, I have a research assistant who will do outreach for me. So instead of spending all this time, you know, contacting experts, I can say, hey, contact Michael Keenan, contact, you know, Kaylee Moore, Amanda Natividad or whatever, about like reach out to them and see if they will give you a quote on XYZ. And so he can kind of take care of some of the process. And that's what he does for a living.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, it's great work for him. And then for me, in my outline, I get like, this is what Michael Keenan said. This is what, you know, whatever expert. It's just there and I can write it. So that's a good way to speed things up as well.
Are you tired of freelancing platforms not meeting your needs? You know, talent mismatch, lowballing, high transaction fees, just to name a few of the problems. Alchemunity solves these problems and more with its unique gamified scoring system. Check them out today at alchemunity.com.
I love that. And I think also we mentioned briefly in another episode, so I won't go too far in depth, is once you have that outline, you can save so much more time actually writing than getting into that article and like typing it out and having to do all the research. I mean, I've been there, I've done it. Like I've definitely done from blank page to full on article in one day. And it's just so stressful. And even because it's so stressful, it adds more time to it, right? Because you're a little stressed, you're a little anxious, like you're really running in circles, right? Like being that unorganized, well, that's not a fair thing to say. Like not having that writing process structured in a way can actually lose you time because, right, like if you're not working from a fleshed outline, like it's going to take you longer to write, and outlines don't really have to take as like a very long time because it's really just brain dumps and information that's going to this thing, and then you're going to tighten all that information up after. And then for me personally, like how I write faster is by using templates. And it's not even, I don't mean that like I have a template that says like one, like blah, blah, blah. And then it's like one of the best ways. Like, I mean, literally I follow the same idea, description, illustration, action.
Okay.
And that works over and over again for things. Cause I write a lot of like how-tos or tips or anything like that. Like where I am working with sources and statistics and everything. So I always just keep in mind, like if I'm feeling lost or anything, I even will write in like an outline, I'll put a D and then just shoot like what the description is. And it doesn't even have to be like my own like thought. It can just be something that I pulled from somewhere and just throw it in the D. And then I, which is the illustration, and like illustrate how it works, like your examples and whatever. And then A, like what the hell should this person do after reading all this information?
Yeah.
So I already know exactly what needs to go into an article, right? Like before I even get a brief from anyone, I know it needs to go into it. And that saves me so much time because I don't have to think. Anything that I don't need to think about is going to save me time. And I don't want to think. I want to do the least amount of thinking in my day possible.
Yes.
And that's kind of the way that I go about for like speeding up the time writing.
Yes.
And it took me years to figure that out. Years. And there's other writing formulas. I don't know all of them. I've seen like 3 or 4 other models that people use to like just templatize like your outlines, I guess. And like really structure the article so it's easier for you to write it. And I love that. And I love doing that. And it just makes everything less cognitive overload.
Yes. Okay. So if I weren't drinking tequila, I would make this into into an article. But I like that we've talked about very different things that you can do. Like you can speed up processes in your business, which is essentially what we talked about first. You can speed up processes in your research / scale your team so that you can take more work. And then you can also speed up the writing process. So there's so many different ways that you can scale your business to speed up processes across the board.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like what you said about the actual writing process too. For me, I do a couple things. Like I will work from a brief and then I'll build a very skinny outline. And then from there, I flesh it out with a dump doc, essentially, is what I call it. And that's where I go in and I take my research and I just place it, like the whole paragraph, just like from whatever source, like underneath. And then
I'll even bold out parts that are like interesting.
Yeah.
I always am bolding stuff and like throwing it into that document.
And then I take that and then I'll usually from there, I actually start writing. I know some people will outline a little bit more, but I feel like with that dump doc, it is my outline. And then I know this is probably very different from what other writers do. From the dump doc, I actually try to write a very polished draft. As opposed, like I feel like I've got all the like crap.
If you're already like in the flow with the knowledge and everything, just start. Yeah, I mean, if you get that, you might as well just do it. Like, don't deny yourself the time to write. If you're like, oh, I'm feeling really good, like just start 5 fingers away. Like just get it done. You know?
It outlines the story for me, so I already have the story in mind, and then I can just write it.
Yeah.
And so typically I don't write a crappy first draft because I feel like I've done the crappy first research.
Yeah.
And then I've formulated the story, and then from there I can write and then send it to my editor. But like it never works to just start writing an article. Like you'll get lost. You don't know like what the narrative is. You're not sure like what the stats are going to say, and you're going to end up with a disaster on your hands that takes forever.
And we don't want that. But I am curious. Okay, so I'm curious. Like now, what are some of the things that to avoid doing that don't, right? Because like we talked about ways to optimize your time. Like time is our commodity, honey. And we talked about ways to like maximize those clams. But so like now, what are some of the things that you should not be doing, or not be doing for free?
Okay.
And I'll go first.
Go for it. Yes.
CMS uploads should never be free.
Yes.
Even though they seem easy, like they seem like, oh, you're just throwing it into WordPress and adding alt text and like doing some jump links or whatever. Never that easy. Never that easy. CMS uploads, not something to do for free. What about you?
For me, I look at it like this. I am a freelance writer. Is it related to the writing process? Yes, then that's my job. Is it related to the writing process? No, that's something you either pay me for or it is not my job. So I don't do strategy unless I'm getting paid. I will outsource that to someone who does strictly strategy. SEO, if I price that into my services, and typically I do.
What do you say SEO? When you say SEO, though,
when I say SEO, I mean like if a lot of times people will come to me and they'll be like, we want you to research keywords for me.
Oh, okay.
That is not what I do. That's something that an SEO team needs to do. But once I have a keyword, I 100% will optimize it because that's part of the writing process. What about you? Anything else?
No, pretty similar. Like, I mean, so there's a fine line for me. Like, for example, if I see a keyword opportunity for a client, I don't hide it from them. Like, no, but for example, I'm not gonna like hoard the keyword and be like, well, you need to pay me for this keyword. You know, if I just see something that's interesting, I just shoot them a Slack message. I'd be like, hey, saw this keyword opportunity. You should check it out. I think it fits like a feature of the product, or it fits the things that I've been writing about lately. And that's it. It takes me 5 minutes and I do that. But otherwise, like anything outside of that, like I'm here to help my clients do their best, but also there needs to be that like back and forth. I think things that you should never ever do. Things you should never ever do. Oh, I have one. I have a good one. Wait, all right. And there's a good way to end this one. Things you should never ever do is move across the country for a client. I've done it.
What?
Yeah, I've done it. I did it for a contract. I wasn't living in LA, but I was in LA for a little bit. and I was originally planning to move to Malaysia
Oh my
to
gosh.
practice diving. Yeah.
So fun. You dive?
I have dove.
I dive.
I'm not a diver. I can't call myself a diver. I know how to dive.
I have dived.
You have, oh, okay. I wanted to go get a certification in Malaysia.
I have a certification.
Oh, I don't.
And I just swim around with the fish.
Like a fish.
Yes.
So to make a long story short, I ended up booking this client. Like, it was really great. The vibe was really awesome. I hauled my ass from LA to Boston, lived in Boston. Then,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, like I asked them to pay for my moving fees and everything, and they did.
Oh, that's good.
And
as a contractor?
As a contractor, yeah.
Wow.
I was a contractor. Long story short, it didn't last even 6 months. So,
oh my gosh.
yeah. And
That's interesting that you would have to actually change physical locations in a freelance position.
No, here's the problem. It was my recommendation. Like I said, I was like, do you want me to be in office? Like, we can come into the office and work together? Because they had a really, really expensive client. And what we were doing was content and content work for that client. Mm-hmm. So one time they were saying it'd be good to have someone in house, in the office. Okay. For visibility, to make it look like we're a bigger team, make it look like that, make it look like we care type thing. Even though they did care, but and I was like, you should have me move to Boston,
Wow.
And it didn't last 6 months. It was great though, because that's where I met Jose in person, was in Boston, my partner. So everything happens for a reason, but I wouldn't recommend moving across the country for a contract, because it didn't even last 6 months, and then I was left with one client because I gave them a lot of my time, and that's also a whole nother topic to get into.
That's probably a good one, actually. Don't put all your eggs in one client basket.
Yeah, but not for this one, because we're coming up on time. So.
Oh, yes.
So don't move across the country. Don't do anything that's outside of the writing process.
Clearly define what you will do and what you don't do, and don't let them treat you like an employee. Exactly. It is a business relationship. You own a business. They are your client. You are not their employee. Yay! Go make money. I want you to make $1 million.
Oh, $1 million.
$1 million.
All right, go make $1 million. Or make whatever you want.
Make $1 if you want.
Yeah, fuck it. But I don't think we want
Nobody wants to make $1.
Goodbye.